A group of serial killers attending a 12-step meeting tried to kill me and my accomplice before disappearing, leaving us with 3 dead bodies?
No, 2 dead bodies.
Are you Skinner? A slicer dicer or a corpse humper?
Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and murderers stalking you in a Chinese restaurant. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at Vicious Fun. This 2020 horror comedy follows a horror film critic who drunkenly stumbles into a self-help group for serial killers. The maniacs obviously discover he is not one of them, and the dopey sad sack struggles to survive the night as they hunt him down. Vicious Fun was directed by Cody Callahan, who has brought us films like The Oak Room and Antisocial. He co-wrote the story with James Villeneuve, who has an upcoming film called Pins and Needles. The film has a large, very fun ensemble cast, featuring Evan Marsh from Shazam and Giant Little Ones, Amber Goldfarb from Lovelocks and The Punisher No Mercy, Ari Millen from The Life and Death of John F. Donovan and The Oak Room, Julian Richings from Wrong Turn and Beau is Afraid, Robert Melee from Deadpool 2 and Pacific Rim, and David Kreuchner from The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Anchorman. The cinematography and score were handled by Callahan's frequent collaborators Jeff Mayer and Steph Copeland of films like The Oak Room and Antisocial. Vicious Fun was released right in primetime COVID, so it flew really under the radar. It was met with positive reviews from critics though, with an 88 and 68% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 3.3 on Letterboxd. Thank you so much to my patron Lee for requesting Vicious Fun for me to review. This will be my first time watching it, and it'll be the first horror comedy I've covered on the channel in a while, so I think this should be a lot of fun. And don't forget, you too can request movies for me to review by becoming a patron. Want me to talk about your all-time favorite, an absolute piece of dog shit to ruin my day, anything in between? That power is within your reach. But with all of that said, it's probably time we get started. Make sure you've got a DD tonight, because we're watching Vicious Fun. The movie opens inside a Minnesota motel in 1983, where a possible serial killer is sharpening his knife collection before hitting the road. He literally doesn't have to leave the parking lot to find a hitchhiking young woman, but before the creep can do anything, she whips out a blade and kills the fuck out of him. Good for you, Queen. Now we meet our protagonist Joel, who is a film critic for a horror magazine called Vicious Fanatics. He's interviewing a B-movie director named Jack and questions why he relies on so many lazy tropes. Joel shares his own idea for a cab driver killer, but the director is unimpressed and sends him on his way. Joel's late-night ideations are interrupted when his roomie Sarah returns home, and he watches as she gets it on with her date in his car. Joel obviously has a crush on her, and she obviously does not reciprocate. Sarah sends him away so she can have some of her girlfriends over, so with nothing better to do, he follows her date in a very convenient taxi. This takes him to the world's coolest Chinese restaurant in Minnesota, and the freak starts recording as he attempts to chat with the dude. Turns out he's a realtor named Bob. Don't judge a book by its cover, I guess. Or maybe do, since the sleazebag wears a fake wedding ring while he's out to sell more houses. He proceeds to tell Joel all about Sarah's gag reflex, her non-stop chatter, and her loser roommate. Yeah, Sarah feels little more than pity for him, and she is looking for a new place to live. Womp womp. Then Bob ditches him for another woman and leaves Joel to pay for his drinks. Our pathetic protagonist drinks the night away, eventually stumbling into a familiar-looking lady. He calls up Sarah and drunkenly rambles through his emotions, but fortunately throws up on the payphone and destroys it. Joel wanders into a supply closet and passes out, and after the restaurant closes, it seems to change vibes a little bit. Joel wakes from his slumber and follows a voice, and he comes upon what resembles an AA meeting. The group mistakes him for a new guy named Phil, and the confused dummy plays along. The group includes Killer Queen Carrie, the host Zachary, big guy Mike, Japanese guy Hideo, and old guy Fritz. Apparently everyone has gotten what they need off their chests, so Phil has the floor. Joel prattles off some generic struggles with a vague addiction, which allows him to skate by for now. Mike begins to speak about how he is losing touch with his inner shark and describes the various cabins, campsites, and sorority houses he has committed murder in. Surprise, Joel, you've wandered into a self-help program for serial killers. Fritz is highly organized and methodical, Hideo is a cannibalistic assassin, Mike is a mask-wearing slasher, Zachary is an ex-military death squad trainer who snapped, and Carrie keeps her cards close to her chest. All eyes turn to Phil to share his MO, and Joel takes on the persona of his taxi driver killer idea. He decides that he likes to kill single young women who have recently been cheated on or dumped, and he describes it as putting them out of their misery. Go off, Incel King! The group expresses concern that one of their usual members is missing, but then they get a knock at the door. And voila! Douchebag Bob is also a serial killer, and I think he just killed that woman he left with. He recalls that Joel introduced himself as Dave earlier, but Joel passes that off as an alias to stay anonymous in public. But with more questioning from Bob, he dives into the specifics of how he gets away with murder while on duty, while calling in addresses to dispatch, and having that paper trail to his victims. Yeah, his taxi cab load of lies quickly catches up with him, and the group realizes he is not Phil and is not a killer. Joel tries to run but is quickly caught, and as they look over his ID, he confesses to just drunkenly stumbling into the meeting. The group begins arguing over who gets to kill Joel, and when Zachary begins insulting the group, Mike jams a chopstick through his throat. Hideo jumps in and slashes his gut open, and even Fritz nails him with a syringe. Joel tries to skedaddle and drops his tape recorder, at which point Carrie snatches it and locks the two of them in the kitchen. Turns out Carrie is a serial killer who kills other serial killers, you know, like Dexter. She tells Bob that Joel is dead, but no longer trusts them enough to open the door. Bob tells her the boys are really sorry for killing Zachary, but they are very suspicious as to how and why Joel ended up here with a tape recorder. If they can see it and his body, they are happy to leave, but that is not happening. Carrie asks Joel why the fuck he's here, and quickly ascertains that he's a loser with nothing going on in his life. Bob throws on some tunes to get in the mood for killing, and he also uses the noise to plan with the boys. Carrie fills him in on each of the killer's MOs, sharing that they are responsible for 12% of the unsolved murders in the US. Hideo is a chef, cannibal, and skilled killing machine. Mike is an angry, powerful, sloppy slasher who likes killing college girls mid-coitus. Fritz is a cold, emotionless accountant who dresses up like a clown when he kills. And Bob uses his ability to act normal to blend into everyday life. He travels around as a fake lawyer, doctor, and real estate agent, and kills the women he dates between the first and third date. Carrie works for some kind of organization dedicated to eliminating serial killers, and she intends on killing them all tonight. Joel is worried for Sarah since she's seeing Bob, and the boys start dissolving Zach's body. Hideo goes on a solo mission in the vents, and Carrie unveils the guy she killed in the intro inside a freezer. This is the real Phil. Fritz sneaks out back and removes the locks, and Carrie hits the lights as both he and Hideo make their way in. The ninja finds a seemingly dead Joel with his guts hanging out, and he's suspicious when he gives them a taste. Fresh never frozen my ass. Bob takes a closer look at Joel's ID and realizes who his roommate is, and Fritz gets his fingers lopped off by Carrie. He does manage to relock the door from the outside, and Joel ambushes Hideo with Phil's intestines. It doesn't accomplish much, but Carrie emerges and manages to strangle the assassin to death. Bob reveals his newfound knowledge to Joel and promises to kill Sarah when he's done with them, and Joel pulls a fire alarm. Not a bad move, but Bob opts to call the police himself and describe Carrie and Joel as a pair of murderers before the boys flee the scene. Joel looks over her extensive to-kill list and compliments all the damage she's doing tonight, and Carrie suggests that he use less creepy methods to win Sarah's heart. The boys watch as the cops arrive and arrest our dynamic duo, who we rejoin at the station. Many officers are left to clean up at the restaurant, and the ones at the station don't believe a word that Joel and Carrie have to say. She warns them that 3 men will come here to kill them, and they come to the conclusion that she's the killer and Joel is her wimpy sidekick. Joel does get to make a phone call before he's locked up, so he tries to warn Sarah that Bob is a serial killer. She doesn't believe that and ignores his pleas to not come visit him. Carrie fakes a meltdown and socks Joel, which allows her to snag a paperclip to pick the lock. She also tells Joel he's a jealous creep and isn't entitled to Sarah's love just because he isn't a serial killer. But she does give him some words of encouragement as well. Joel asks about a killer listed all by himself in her book, Mr. Midnight, and she shares that he killed someone close to her. She's not even sure who the real Mr. Midnight is or if he's even alive, but she continues to search for him. Bob makes his way into the station disguised as an FBI agent, and of course the dumbass officers completely believe him and let him waltz around like he owns the place. The boys in blue start listening to Joel's recorder, but fortunately for Bob, they can't get past his terrible monologues. Bob does come across Carrie's kill list, which is cause for concern. While Bob has the 2 detectives distracted, Fritz the motherfucking clown sedates poor Officer Tony. He finishes him by hammering a nail into his dome. Ouch. He cuts the power as well, and Carrie finally picks the lock. Detective Doyle searches for Tony, but he winds up losing an arm and getting eviscerated by Mike. Bob completes the trifecta by simply jamming a pair of pencils into Detective Holland's ears. He reconvenes with his scary friends and finds that their prey has escaped, also sharing with them that Carrie is a bona fide killer. She and Joel manage to unlock the front door, but she tells him to beat it so she can finish what she started. She locks herself in with the himbos and goes on a hunt. She sneaks up on Mike and uses his own machete to slash his shoulder, and uses her superior speed and skill to take him down. She ultimately kills the big guy with a machete through his welding mask. Joel's running away is interrupted by a rare appearance of his own backbone, but Sarah's dumbass gets there before he does. Fritz hears that she tries to find a way inside and unlocks the door for her. What a gentleman. Carrie hits the lights as he's sneaking up on her, but turns out Sarah is pretty tough herself. Joel and Carrie arrive, and the latter uses Fritz's own sedative on him. She sends Sarah to wait outside and promptly smashes the clown's head with a desk. Bob uses this chance to stab her in the back though, and Joel takes a stab to the arm trying to protect her. He starts strangling Carrie, but Joel conks him with a telephone. They hop into Sarah's car and head to the hospital, committing hit and run on their way out. At the hospital, Joel gets his knife removed, Carrie is unconscious, and Sarah gets caught up on the plot of the film. Joel finds some bloody footprints and realizes Bob is on the premises, who is now posing as a doctor and preparing to kill Carrie. Joel gets his attention, also waking up Carrie, and our final boy takes the lead in fighting the big bad. It is Carrie who ultimately kills the douchebag though, with a fucking barrage of scalpel stabs. He hangs on long enough to remove his impaled eyeball, but does in fact die. Then Joel throws up on him. Carrie has changed her mind about Joel and offers him a job as her apprentice. What a fun and prosperous career I'm sure he'll have. He wheels Carrie out in the chaos, giving Sarah a hopeful smile as he rounds the corner. A few months later, and it looks like that director did like Joel's idea after all. He and Carrie double team a movie theater employee who likes killing his coworkers, also grabbing some snacks for the road. He also found the newest copy of Vicious Fanatics. They set the theater ablaze and ride off into the night to end the movie. And that's Vicious Fun. All in all, I'd say this has lived up to its title. It was in fact a lot of fun. The whole movie is a throwback love letter to the horror genre as well as the true crime genre, and it does a lot with all kinds of tropes, stereotypes, and archetypes. Mike is obviously our resident big dumb summer camp slasher, and he's bringing all of the Jason vibes, but also a touch of manic rage similar to Ricky Caldwell. Bob is a more intellectual, womanizer, white-collar killer, definitely pulling from Patrick Bateman. Fritz is a mix between cold, quiet, unsuspected suburban-type killers and the batshit John Wayne Gacy types. Hideo is a nod to Japanese splatter and cyberpunk. If he had more profanity, he could have been plucked out of Ichi the Killer. And Zachary's his own funny category, almost like if Rambo decided he loved killing civilians. Each villain brings a very distinct flavor to the film, and watching them bounce off each other is very entertaining. Carrie also makes for a great final girl, and Joel makes for a pretty good Scream King as well. I do think Joel is a little too whiny and mopey for me. It's one thing to root for an underdog and another to root for a genuine loser. His redemption arc is fun, I just think he leaned a bit too hard into simpy incel pick-me bro territory. I also wish that his apparent love of horror movies could have been integrated into his character a bit more. The fact he's a horror film critic played very little role in his ability to face off against these killers. That's a small thing, but I think it could have been cool for the horror nerd to use his knowledge of the genre to his advantage. The sidekick killers are all a lot of fun, but I felt like they got taken down a bit too easily as well. The location switch to the police station is nice since it gives them some time to show off their murderous skills, but when they actually face Carrie, they turn into fodder. And is this supposed to be a self-help group for serial killers? That's what the movie advertises the group as, and it's described on Wikipedia and everywhere, and it seems like that's the case when Joel wanders in, but then not a single killer has even a single moment of hesitation around killing him. I know it's a compromising situation, but nobody had any interest in turning over a new leaf and letting this guy live. Maybe it's more just like a club where killers get together and brag about their kills, I don't know. That AA meeting type setting would have been cool to see more of so the killers could have more development, but it just gets dropped so quickly. That's also a small thing for me though, as once the killing starts, the plot kind of goes away and I'm just having fun from there. And boy, the film matches its zany characters with the lighting and sound. The neon color palettes and synthy score make for a great throwback vibe. All in all, Vicious Fun is a super fun throwback to the 80s and all the incredible and somewhat goofy aspects of its horror. If you're a fan of anything like Shaun of the Dead, Deathgasm, Zombievers, Zombieland, or Leslie Vernon, you'll probably have a good time with it. It offers up some interesting characters, gory kills, solid production, and hilarious moments. It's got a little bit of everything you'd want in a horror comedy, and I definitely see myself throwing it on in future spooky seasons. Well, that's about it. Thank you again to my patron Lee for requesting Vicious Fun for me to review. I had a lot of fun covering it. But what did y'all think of the film? Have you seen it before? Let me know down below. And be sure to join me in 2 weeks as we finally rank all 5 of the Phantasm films. Thank you all so much for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Vicious Fun. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my horror reviews. And if you want to help support the channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks, y'all.